Yeah, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys back. Welcome to Watang Yu. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is the last day of our 5-day course where I've been teaching you guys how to build harmony in your relationships. And we've just got a couple of topics to kind of finish out our course. We're going to start with meditation like we do each morning. And then after our meditation, I'm going to share with you how to practice the path to enlightenment in the workplace. Because if you were only practicing the teachings in your personal life, you would actually never experience enlightenment. You're going to need to practice in your personal life, but also in your professional life too. And I'll explain to you guys what that means. Then we'll share with you the topic of the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. This is going to help you to minimize the amount of hostility and bitterness that you get, or controlling behavior that you get, or the people pushing you away out of their life from your friends and family and coworkers and people like this. I'll explain to you when we get to that. But we're going to start with meditation. And as you guys heard me share yesterday, what I do towards the end of these classes is I kind of taper off on the guidance that I give you in meditation, so that way you can stand up more and more on your own 2 feet, because I'm not permanent in your life. I am impermanent. So me guiding you every day is fine for you to get started and learn how to meditate, but then ultimately you need to be out there meditating on your own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the chanting, and then we can go into meditation, and you guys do your own meditation. There's just going to be a period of time of quietness instead of me guiding you. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. So during the meditation, if you were doing breathing mindfulness meditation, you would focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. You could just do that all the way through the entire meditation if you like. But if you like to do loving kindness meditation, which is what I recommend for the morning, you would start with just a little bit of breathing mindfulness, about 3 to 5 minutes of that, where you're focused on your breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. But then you come in with those phrases of, may I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of discontentedness. So you do this very slowly on the out breath. And then you just expand wider and wider, like may mom and dad be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. And you can do others too. You can customize this. And then ultimately you go back to the breathing mindfulness and then come out with the chanting. And you would like to do about 6 to 8 rings. That's usually what the mind can handle in one meditation. Okay, so if you guys would like to join along, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to start with the chanting, and then you guys are on your own for the meditation. Then I'll come out with the chanting at the end. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Putang Mahakawanang Apiwate Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma sati sata tawa manusra Poto Bhagavati อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิ สวากขาโตมหาควตาธัมโมดามังนามาสามิ สุปฏิปันโนมหาควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะควะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. Good morning. Welcome to everyone online as well. Just like I did yesterday, I'm going to pause and see if you guys have questions about meditation, because oftentimes students are building up their meditation practice and there's multiple questions that you might have. Just so you know, this was a 30-minute meditation. My goal for each one of these courses is to build students up to the point where they have a 30-minute meditation. And this was a 30-minute meditation. So if it felt like, wow, that was a real stretch, then you understand, where you're at in terms of your meditation. If you felt like, wow, that was felt like 5 minutes, now you know where you're at in your meditation practice. If you felt like, wow, that was just right, then you know where you're at, right? So you would like to build up to 30 minutes of meditation per session, about 2 to 3 sessions per day. That's what you would like to build up to. So do you guys have any questions on meditation? Anything you guys would like to ask? Yeah, please. And for those of you guys online, remember, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like.
So quick question. When you meditate at home, would you advise setting up a timer or an alarm on your phone, or just kind of like go by how you feel in terms of duration?
Yeah, I don't suggest you use an alarm if you don't need one. For example, if it's like evenings or weekends, you don't have anything going on, because one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to be deep in meditation, meditating, getting all kinds of benefit, and the alarm's going to go, and you're like, I could have got more benefit if I wouldn't have set that alarm. Or you're going to be in meditation. You're going to be thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? And this is the craving of the mind. So the way you get rid of those two things is just start your meditation and meditate. And then when you're done, you're done. What you'd like to do about once a week to check in to see where you're at with your meditation is look at the time before you start, 9 a.m. Now you meditate, and then when you're done, look at the time again, 9:15. Okay, you see where you're at. Your 15 minutes meditation. Now you just try to work on expanding that over time. But if you absolutely need an alarm, maybe here and there, maybe you're on your way to work and you only have 20 minutes to meditate, and if you went any longer, it wouldn't be wise for you, then go ahead and set an alarm. But where you don't need one, it's best if you don't set one, because then you won't be in meditation craving to know if it's time, and you can also reap the rewards and benefit if you'd like to go longer than that. Sometimes that's something that the mind will do, is you'll look at your time and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I meditated for 45 minutes. That seemed like 5 minutes. So you'll notice those kinds of things. As you're not using an alarm, you'll get more benefit. Mm-hmm.
So is there any length of time that you're trying to strive for, or is any amount, as long as it's repetitive, like you're doing, you suggest 30 minutes per day?
Yeah, 30 minutes is like the sweet spot. That if you can get to 30 minutes, you're going to notice that that's where a lot of the benefits are occurring. But that's not to say like a 5 or 10 minute meditation wouldn't be helpful, because it is. But the Buddha meditated 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. And we know this because it's in the teachings. But they weren't able to keep precise time because they didn't have watches back then. But just from my own practice, I can tell you that 30 minutes is like a sweet spot, that once you get to 30 minutes, things have really drastically changed by that point. And from my understanding, they've done research on this, scientists and people like this, and they say 25 minutes is the sweet spot for them. That's what they've noticed, that the most significant changes happen at the 25-minute mark. So I didn't know that when I started recommending 30 minutes. And my 30 minutes is from the beginning of the chant to the end of the chant. So the chant is 2.5 minutes, then you're meditating for 25 minutes, and then you're actually doing another chant for 2.5 minutes. So it's a 30-minute session. So it matches up to what scientists say as well. So, you should have 2 to 3 per day. That's what you would like to build up to for 30 minutes. And then if you need little touch-up meditations here and there, you can do that. There were periods of time where my mind was having issues, and I would do a little 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and kind of do these little touch-up meditations. But wherever you start is where you start, because you're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition with anybody. You just gradually build it up. And it can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency and this type of duration, because there's certain things that are going on in your life that you're going to need to peel away in order to be able to make space for this kind of stuff. And oftentimes there's unbeneficial things that someone's doing that if they look at their life, they can kind of shrink down the amount of time they're scrolling on social media, or shrink down all the YouTube videos that they're watching, or other things that are maybe unbeneficial. And that gives you much more time for meditation.
And is there a sweet spot of the time of day that you do these? You said morning and afternoon.
Yeah.
Like precise
Morning
times based on sun or moon or what?
No, none of that is a factor, because wherever the sun is, wherever the moon is, that's not going to change your meditation at all. It's morning, midday, and evening. I suggest you have the morning and the evening as anchor points, because usually things are kind of calm during this period of time. Your phone hasn't started ringing. People aren't awake yet, all those kinds of things. So morning and evening are a great kind of anchor point. And then if you can get a middle of the day in, that is really great. But there's nothing with the outside world that is going to affect your meditation. You'll hear some people tell you that you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, every morning, in order to get to enlightenment. Well, I can assure you there's nothing going on that's special at 3:30 in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse. And remember, this individual who's the Buddha, he's the discoverer, the declarer, the originator of the path to enlightenment. Essentially, he didn't invent the path to enlightenment, but he discovered it, right? And whatever he did is what led to his enlightenment, and you would like to get as close as that as possible. So he never meditated at a specific time during the day, because they couldn't keep track of time. That's how you know that they didn't have watches back then. So the other thing you can look at is you can understand that with the universal truth of impermanence, would it be possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every day? It's not possible, right? So you can know that there's nothing about any specific time of day that's going to make it any better or any worse. You can meditate wherever you like, but spreading it out like this morning, midday, and evening is wise because, you do your morning meditation, you have about 4 to 6 hours in your day. You do another one and you have another kind of 4 to 6 hours in your day, and you do another one, right? And like, you're kind of like hitting the mind at all these different points. It's kind of like rebooting your computer, right? It's doing the same thing for your mind. So if there's anything that happened in that 4 to 6 hour window, you kind of are able to deal with it in your meditation, which is really nice that you reset your mind. And this will really help you throughout your day and throughout your year. You'll notice that if you get to this type of schedule, 2 or 3 per day, you're going to be gradually making your way to enlightenment. Now, if you did 2 a day, right, for an entire month, that's about 60 meditations in a month. Well, you're probably not going to get to that, all the time. But if you got 52, 53, 54, you're making your way to enlightenment. If you just did 1 meditation a day, you're never going to get to enlightenment with just 1 meditation a day. But if you're, getting about close to 2, upwards of 3, so even though you're not going to be able to get, exactly 2 every day, probably, if you get 52, 53, 54 meditations, you're going to be making your way to enlightenment, because your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on whether you miss meditation today or not. Your enlightenment is going to be determined based on, if you miss meditation today, what do you do next? Right? Do you allow that to be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year you're not meditating? Yeah, you're not going to get to enlightenment that way. But if you're like, I missed meditation today. Wow, I need to really get back on that. And now you're making your way to enlightenment. So if you miss a meditation here and there, you don't need to put pressure on yourself or, anything like that. Just understand like, okay, meditation's impermanent. I'm not going to always be able to meditate. And now just make extra efforts to ensure you're meditating regularly. And it's going to get to the point where like you probably can't even imagine going outside without taking a shower or brushing your teeth or having a meal or something like that. It's the same kind of thing that, you address the needs of the body, which is taking a shower, hygiene, food, stuff like that, using the restroom. You address the physical body, make sure that's well, but then you've got to address this other part to this being, which is the mind. And you start learning and seeing the benefits in that. And you can't imagine going a day without it.
For sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And last, you're saying these 30 minutes twice a day is better than like 1 longer session?
Yeah. If it was a matter of 1 session for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, I would suggest for you to do the 2 for 15. You're going to see that frequency is more important than the duration. It's more impactful because you're kind of hitting the mind more regularly throughout your day. And it also helps you because let's say you're just doing 1 meditation a day. If you miss that meditation, it's 48 hours before you meditate again, right? Whereas if you're doing 2 in a day and you miss 1, it's only 24 hours before you actually meditate again. So the frequency is actually more important because you're hitting the mind more frequently throughout your day rather than just once a day. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome. Did you have a question? Oh, okay.
But I have a little bit feeling maybe I like share with everyone here.
If you have a question, let me know.
Okay,
no question.
It's
Okay.
all answered.
Yeah, because if everybody shared their thoughts, we would be here for a long time. And, okay. All right. So let me see if we have any questions. Looks like Steve has a question. Steve says, yesterday you mentioned a very helpful visualization you used when you had your mom in one of your loving kindness rings. Can you share any other visualizations you used that were helpful as you were building your practice? That's the only one, is the one with my mom. And I didn't just do it with my mom. It was, anybody who was in my loving kindness meditation, because it's only loving kindness meditation that you're actually doing visualizations. In breathing mindfulness, you're not doing that. In the meditation to realize non-self, which I didn't teach in this program, there's no visualization. In the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, there is visualization there. You can read it in volume 1, chapter 11. If you're needing help to knock down sexual cravings, there's a meditation for that. And there's visualizations that you use for that. You can actually use physical images actually for that too. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, teacher. My question is about when we're doing the loving kindness meditation and we're adding in the ring people that we've harmed. Now, I have this one person in my mind from many, many, many years ago, and I put them in there frequently, but I guess I'm just wondering, do I do that forever? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, I don't have any feeling about this person anymore. I wish them well, but do I continue to add this person?
You keep them in your meditation for as long as the mind has anger, hatred, and ill will towards them, or any of the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even if you have the slightest dislike for that person. One of the ways that you can test this for your mind is ask yourself, if this person showed up at your front door, your house, and knocked on the door, not even knowing that was your house, and you opened the door and they said, "Oh my gosh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I ran out of gas down the street. Would you be willing to help me go get some gas?" What would you do? Would you slam the door in their face? Keep putting them in your loving kindness meditation, right? Or if you're like, okay, well, maybe I can help you, and I can take you, get away from anything like, if this person, I know this isn't probably the case, but let's just say there's some people in your life that maybe have had sexual abuse or something like this. Of course, this type of person you're not interested in being around. Even when you eliminate your anger and hatred and dislike towards this person has shown you that you're not interested in being around that person. So take that out of it, and would you help this person if they were in need of help? Because that tells you that your loving kindness and your compassion is in your mind towards this person. So that's what you're trying to test. Not that you would physically go get in a car with somebody who's maybe done some kind of sexual abuse or physical abuse or something like this.
Okay. But this is someone that I had harmed.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. So if you gotten to the point where you don't even have the slightest dislike towards this person, then yeah, that's how you'll know that you don't need to include them.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Joe.
All right, Teacher David, I have never dealt with headaches before, ever in my life. And recently, in the last maybe month, every time I meditate, I get pounding headaches, whether it's like in the front of my head, on the side of my head, in the back of my head. I don't know what that's about.
Okay. So when you're training your mind is non-physical. Your brain is something completely different. Your brain is the physical organ of the body. And there's a connection between these two things. When you're training your mind, the non-physical entity, it actually has an effect to the brain. The physical structures of the brain will change. And this is oftentimes going to produce headaches and pains in the head. This is where you need to remind yourself that this body is impermanent. In these physical structures that are changing, doctors have actually researched this. They've used MRIs, CAT scans, and other devices. They can see that this is indeed what is occurring for people who are meditating. And it's not just from your meditation practice, it's from improving your moral conduct and all these other things. There's going to be these beneficial changes to the brain that are occurring. And what they're seeing with science is exactly what the Buddha taught as well, that once you get to a certain point of your development, the physical structures of the brain never actually change back to the way they were before. So that's what's going on there. And you're going to need to experience enough of that until all those changes have taken place. And once those changes have taken place, then you won't have this anymore. Your brain will have fully changed. So if you need to use some kind of medication to get over that pain, you can. But just understand that this is normal. It's a normal part of the path, that the physical structures of the brain need to change. And this is helpful and this is beneficial. You'll notice this not only while you're meditating or shortly thereafter, but if you're getting rid of a lot of significant attachments, you can notice this too, because your mind is getting rid of this pollution and it's affecting the structures of your brain in a positive way. So we're not used to things like this actually being an indication of something positive and beneficial, but it actually is. As long as you look at your life and you make sure that you're, hydrating well, you're eating food, you're getting rest, these kinds of things, and all those things are taken care of, and this is what you're experiencing, this is what it's from, is actually training the mind. The physical structures of the brain are changing. Yep. Okay. don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is move into this first topic for this morning. The topics that I have to share with you guys are actually quite short. As I shared with you guys, we'll probably finish up pretty early today. But this first path here, this first topic here is the path to enlightenment, practicing the path in the workplace. As I was sharing at the beginning of class, if you were only practicing the teachings of the Buddha in your personal life, you actually wouldn't get to enlightenment. You're going to need to practice these teachings at all time during your day, including at work. Because there's certain teachings that the Buddha taught that it's all encompassing. It's about how your mind performs in all your day-to-day functions. What the Buddha is going to teach you as part of his teachings is how to get to a point where your work doesn't even feel like work anymore. If you're dragging yourself to work and you despise being there, you're not practicing what we call right livelihood. You can actually get to a point where work doesn't even feel like work anymore. You thoroughly enjoy what you do, and you go to this place or you do this particular thing each and every day because you just thoroughly enjoy it. And sure, you're collecting some money in order to be able to sustain your life, but that's not the focus of what it is that why you do this particular thing. You do this particular thing because you just thoroughly enjoy it. And the money part of it is just kind of there as a necessity. So the Buddhist teachings are helping you to be able to get to that point where you have enthusiasm, ambition, and motivation in your livelihood. But also he gives you guidance on how to perform your livelihood so that as you're performing your livelihood, you can actually be very successful. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life, your profession, your work. Now, some people, their livelihood doesn't involve being employed or owning a business. Maybe they're a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad or something like this. Maybe they do volunteer work. All these things apply to those types of environments too. So here I'm going to share with you guys how to apply these teachings in your day-to-day work. Because as you guys heard me share, there's things like on the path to enlightenment, to practice singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time. Well, what do you do when you've got coworkers barging into your office? You're sitting there on the phone and people are barging into your office and now they're trying to get your attention. So I'm going to teach you how to deal with these kinds of situations. So the first thing, like always, is to acquire wisdom. You need to develop your life practice. You need to be able to focus on your own growth and your own development. As long as you're not understanding the Eightfold Path and all the other teachings of the Buddha, you're not going to be able to apply it in your day-to-day life. Remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You're learning, investigating, examining his teachings. You're reflecting on them to verify if they're true or false. And then you're practicing his teachings in your day-to-day life. So you're going to need to acquire the wisdom of what the teachings are in order to then be able to practice them in your day-to-day life. You're going to need to keep with your breathing mindfulness meditation, your loving kindness meditation, and your practice of generosity. Sometimes when you're really busy at work, people kind of start to leave off the things that are most important to you. Like if you have a lot of work demands, you might kind of skimp on your meditation. You might kind of decrease your meditation so you can spend more time working. That's actually the opposite thing of what you would like to do. When you're getting a lot of work demands, you would actually like to increase your meditation because that's actually going to help you to be able to be sure that you can work through those. Because when you have a lot of work demands on you, you're actually making a lot of decisions in a short period of time. And each one of those decisions are going to have a certain result. That's the natural law of Gotama. And you would like to give your mind the best opportunity to make the very best decisions that you can make while you're in that period of time of a lot of work. So instead of skimping on your meditation and dedicating more time to your work because you're just trying to plow through your work and get to the end of it, you need to stay focused on consistently training your mind with meditation. Understand that you're never going to be done with work. Right? No matter what's going on at work, you're always going to have another task. You need to learn how to push yourself away from your desk or push yourself away from your work and make sure you're spending time on things like meditation. You're going to need to also practice generosity in the work environment with your coworkers and your boss and people like this, your customers. It's important to practice generosity because that's training your mind to let go. That's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, the cause of discontentedness. But when you're practicing generosity in the workplace, be sure you're doing this fairly with everybody, that you're not just, bringing back a milkshake for your one favorite coworker, right? If you work in an office of 6 or 8 people and you're going to bring back a milkshake from lunch for your coworkers, you're going to need to bring back one for everybody. Because if you don't, craving is going to get triggered, and now their mind's going to get jealous. They're not going to realize that their mind's causing it themselves. They're going to attribute that jealousy, that painful feeling to you. And now they're either going to push you away, they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to put their expectations on you and try to control you. So in addition to the Buddha teaching you how to get to peace and joy within your own mind and your own life, he's also teaching you how to navigate the world of unenlightened beings, because there's lots of people in the world that have craving, desire, attachment, and they don't realize they're causing their own painful feelings. So when you're in an environment practicing something like generosity, you'd like to practice generosity with everybody, because that way you're treating everybody equally. And there's no opportunity for them to potentially experience jealousy based on your certain choices and decisions. So these are things that you can do in the work environment in order to maintain your practice. Whether you're meditating at home or whether you're meditating at work, it's a choice for you to make. I actually used to work in one particular office that had lactation rooms. If you guys know what those are, this is for women who are breastfeeding. Maybe they're coming back to work and they need to pump their milk in the middle of the day, because if they don't, it's not going to produce enough for the baby. So they would have these little lactation rooms, and I would go in there and actually meditate sometimes, because they had so many of them and they weren't really being used. So I would go in there and meditate. Or sometimes I was in some work environments where they didn't have any kind of place to meditate. So I would just go in the bathroom and I would sit in the stall with my clothes on, and I would just sit on the toilet and sit there and meditate, because people aren't going to usually come in there and say, hey, I need you to send out this email, while you're using the bathroom. So I would just go in there and actually meditate. So you can find places like this. Maybe on your lunch break, you can go to your car, or you can go somewhere else and you can do a little bit of meditation. So you're going to need to sustain your meditation practice even throughout the times where you're having a lot of demands at work. In terms of your generosity, as I shared, if you work in a small environment, you can bring a bagel or a donut for everybody in this small work environment. But if you're working in a large office, say there's 300 or 500 people in this office, you probably can't afford to bring a bagel or a donut for every single person in the office. So the way that you practice generosity and make sure it's available equally to everybody is, let's just say you buy 20 bagels, you take them back to the office, you put them in the conference room, you send out an email to the whole company and say, hey, I brought back 20 bagels for as many people who would like one. They're in the conference room. You're welcome to help yourself. This is just, my appreciation to all of you for being such a wonderful coworkers to work with, or whatever it is that you would like to say. And now if I'm finishing up that email and I'm delaying my ability to go get this bagel or donut, and I show up and I'm the 21st person, well, I realize that that's my decision, because I sat there and I continued to work and write the email or talk on the phone or whatever it was, and I didn't go to the conference room. So this is a way that you can still practice generosity in a large group of people and make something available for everybody. You're going to need to eliminate complacency as part of your journey on the path to enlightenment. The Buddha talks about this as a hindrance to your enlightenment. The Buddha gives you countless teachings about how to actually get to enlightenment, but he also teaches you teachings of things that are going to hinder you or block you or obstruct you from getting to enlightenment. He calls them the 5 hindrances. And he talks about these 5 hindrances as these are the 5 things that are roadblocks or obstacles to your enlightenment. And one of them is complacency, where you can understand complacency where, like, if you weren't meditating, you're not going to get to enlightenment. Your mind's complacent. Or if you're not reading books, you're not going to get to enlightenment. You're complacent. Or if you're not coming to the temple and consulting with a teacher, learning in classes, you're not going to get to enlightenment because your mind's complacent. You can probably understand that. But the Buddha talked about complacency all the way to the level that if you have an unwholesome thought in your mind and you do nothing about it, then the mind is complacent. So if you're walking down the street and you start judging other people and you start having conceit and you start looking at other people and you look down on them and you just allow that conceited thought to stay in your mind and you do nothing about it, meaning you don't cut it off and let it go, your mind's complacent. Or if you're allowing anger to come into your mind and you do nothing about it, you don't apply right effort, your mind's complacent. Or if you have some other type of unwholesome thought that comes in your mind and you do nothing about it, then the mind's complacent. So this is to the level of detail that the Buddha talks about complacency, because you're going to need to arise your effort and energy, your determination and dedication to get to enlightenment, all the way to the point where if you have an unwholesome thought in your mind, you apply right effort to cut that off and let it go, because you'll never get to enlightenment if you keep allowing the mind to have those unwholesome thoughts. But you also can apply this teaching of complacency in a work environment, that you're not interested in having complacency on the path to enlightenment, but you're also not interested in having complacency in a work environment either. Like, let's just say your boss gives you an assignment on Monday and they say, hey, this is due by Friday. You might be like, oh man, this is such an easy task. I can do this in like 2 hours. I'm just going to coast for the whole week. And then on Friday morning or Friday afternoon, I'm going to do my 2 hours of work, and then I'm going to turn in my project at 4 o'clock. I'm going to get my paycheck and I'm going to be out of here. Right. So you might actually think that you'll just coast through the week and then you're going to wait until Friday and get your work done. Right. This would be complacency. Instead, what you could do is just go ahead and do your work. And if you get it done on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, hand it in to your boss. Let your boss see, like, whoa, they actually got this done. I thought it was going to be done by Friday. They've got it done early. You're not trying to rush through the work, but you just be diligent in your work and apply your effort and energy to getting your work done. And now your boss can see, like, wow, they're on top of this. And now they're going to maybe give you additional work and different career improving tasks. And maybe they're going to staff you on projects. They're going to help build your skills so that you can move up in the company and get promoted. And then even when you leave that company, you have new skills that you can now apply in other professional environments that are going to help build your career up. There's nothing beneficial about you being complacent for the entire week and just coasting through the entire week, doing your 2 hours of work on Friday and then turning it in. There's nothing beneficial in that. The mind is just complacent. It's just kind of sitting around and not doing much. So you'd like to be dedicated and diligent to doing your work and make sure you hand it in at a reasonable time. Because if you delay until Friday, who's to say something on Friday might happen and you actually can't do the 2 hours of work, and next thing you know, you can't even turn in the project because you've been coasting all week long, and now something really big and impactful happened in your life on Friday and you're not even able to do that 2 hours worth of work. So if you just delay like that, you might actually end up turning it in late, and now it doesn't look favorable for you. So go ahead and get your work done readily. And if you need to take a few hours or a day, maybe turn it in on Wednesday, turn it in on Thursday. Okay. You get a little bit of rest here or there. That's fine. It's not nose to the grindstone. That's not what you're interested in doing at work. Even though some cultures teach this, if you need to take a little break here and there, that's fine. When I was in the professional world, I used to have a meeting every Wednesday afternoon. It was an off-site meeting on my calendar because people could see your calendar at work and they would then schedule appointments for you. And I had an off-site meeting every Wednesday that couldn't be moved. And anytime somebody said, hey, David, can I meet with you Wednesday afternoon? I'm like, nope, sorry, I got an off-site meeting. That off-site meeting was me going to a chiropractor, and I would get my bones adjusted. And this was like my time away, and I'd get like a little massage. And that was my Wednesday afternoon off-site meeting. I had a meeting with the doctor, and I would get my little massage over there. My insurance was paying for it. And the way I looked at it is this was my way of taking care of this being so that then I could do wonderful things all week long with all the people I needed to interact with. So there's no harm in you building in stuff like that in your work week, but just be sure you're not complacent. You can apply this understanding of complacency not only to the path to enlightenment, but to your work projects and your work task as well. It's important to practice right livelihood, as you saw in the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path, the Buddha teaches you that one factor, which is the fifth factor of the Eightfold Path, as a right livelihood that ensures that you're not causing harm to any other beings. Because if you're causing harm to other beings through your livelihood, that harm is going to come back to you. He teaches you to ensure that you don't have business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because all of these things are going to cause harm to other beings. And if you cause harm, it's going to come back to you. Then he teaches you to eliminate scheming, flattery, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. We talked about all of these, but if you need a refresher on any of these, you're welcome to let me know, because here's the words of the Buddha in a reference back to the original source teachings where the Buddha actually taught these topics, so you can see what he actually taught. So if you need a refresher on any of these to understand what these are, you can let me know. And remember, the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable. You're not interested in believing these things. These things aren't rules. They aren't commandments. He's teaching you the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. He's showing you that, hey, this is going to cause harm. And if you cause harm, harm's going to come to you. I can actually give you examples of every single one of these in situations where you can see for yourself that the Buddha is speaking the truth. Whether it's weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poisons, I can share with you examples of people who've worked in these type of environments and the harms that they experienced because of it. So if you need help to be able to independently verify this, let me know and I will share that with you. And then the same thing with how you perform your livelihood. The Buddha is teaching you how to perform your livelihood in a way that's going to be successful for you. It's going to help you to create a wonderful livelihood for yourself. What he's ultimately helping you to be able to do is eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance out of your mind, those three poisons or those three unwholesome roots. Because anytime you make decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma for you. So you would like to pay attention to this. This is called the first fold of purification. That's going to get you to the first level of being able to have a purified livelihood. But to get to a fully purified livelihood, you need to eliminate any kind of fetters in your livelihood. So for example, for those of you guys that are familiar with the fetters, what these are the 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind. The Buddha taught to eliminate personal existence view, doubt, which we can talk about what these are if you'd like, wrong behavior and observances, sensual desire, ill will, desire for form, desire for formless, conceit, restlessness, and then something called ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. These are the 10 fetters, the 10 pollutions. And I teach you what the symptoms of these are. I teach you how to eliminate them and how to know that you've eliminated them. So that way you can actually see that these are actually in your own mind. Once a year, I teach a retreat in August, which is an hour to an hour and a half on each individual fetter. So over a 5-day period, I teach you all of these fetters in detail. I explain to you what it is, the symptoms of it, how to eliminate it, how to know that you've eliminated it. So by the time you get to a fully purified livelihood, where you've gotten to the first fold and the second fold of purification, you will not only be practicing this here, which is the first fold of purification, but you'll be practicing to the point where you don't have any of those fetters involved in your livelihood. What I mean by this is, say, for example, like the 8th fetter is conceit. This is arrogance and pride. This is measuring and comparing yourself, making yourself to think that you're superior or inferior to other people. This is where you're judging others, okay? So getting rid of your conceit is part of the path to enlightenment. You need to be able to see yourself as being equal to everybody, that you're not putting yourself above others and you're not putting yourself below others either, because that's just as dangerous. If you go into your boss's office and you're all shaken up because you think they're so far above you and you're hardly able to put together a few words, they're not going to have confidence in your ability to do the job, and you're not going to be able to progress in your employment. So you're not interested in having any conceit in your livelihood where you're putting yourself above people or you're putting yourself below people. So getting to that second fold of purification would be, yes, you're practicing these here, but you also don't have any conceit at work or any of those other fetters. You will have completely eliminated all the fetters as part of your livelihood, that you're not actually practicing and having any of those fetters involved in your day-to-day decisions. This is why your livelihood's going so wonderfully. By the time you get to enlightenment, you just thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. You would do it even if you didn't get paid for it. You just enjoy what you're doing so much. It doesn't even feel like work anymore. So you're going to need to get to the first fold of purification and then ultimately work your way to the second fold of purification through learning and practicing the teachings. But you start with the Eightfold Path. You really need to get that well underway first and then be slowly working towards more and more purification in your livelihood. Some more things about how to practice the path in the workplace is, Remember, the mind can only do one thing at a time. If you're doubting this and you can't see that your mind can actually only do one thing at a time, come let me know. And I have a little activity for you, and I can show you in a way that you can independently verify that your mind can only actually do one thing at a time. When people are talking about multitasking, they're not actually multitasking. They're doing one thing for 3 to 5 seconds. They're doing another thing for 8 seconds. They're doing another thing for 3 to 5 seconds. And their mind's racing around like this. It's going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And if you do this all day at work, when you get home, you'll probably find it very difficult to relax. You'll probably have a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. You'll be hyped up, and you'll have difficulty sleeping and getting along at home. It's kind of like a racehorse. If you ever go to a racetrack, if you watch horses race around the racetrack and then you go to the barn, they're still hyped up because they can't calm down because they're so used to racing around the racetrack. So if you're racing around the racetrack all day long at work, when you go home, you're going to have a hard time to actually rest and relax. Your mind's going to have a certain amount of stress and anxiety. So you'd like to do just one thing at a time, understanding that you can't actually multitask. You're going to need to practice this singleness of mind in your day-to-day work. So what that means is that if you're writing an email and you get a phone call, you're not interested in talking on the phone and continuing to write your email. You're not going to be able to bring forth your full wisdom of something like right speech in order to be able to ensure that you have the best results in your communication. So if you're writing an email and the phone rings and you'd like to answer the phone, then answer the phone. Stop the email and answer the phone. Or if you're just going to let it roll to voicemail or you're going to call them back on caller ID, just keep writing your email. Or if you're writing an email or you're on the phone and an employee or a coworker walks into your office, you're going to need to prioritize here. And what I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you to just continue to do what you're doing. If you're on the phone and somebody walks in, just continue to be on the phone. Because if this coworker barges into your office and you stop doing what you're doing in order to address them, you're teaching them, hey, you can barge into my office at any point and I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and I'm going to address you. And next thing you know, you're going to have 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 different people barging into your office each day, trying to interrupt what it is that you're doing. Because you're teaching people how to interact with you every day based on the way that you make choices. So if you just continue to talk on the phone and then this person walks in and you make eye contact with them and you do like this and you just continue the conversation, even if that's 5, 10, 20 minutes, if they choose to leave, no big deal. They choose to leave, right? What they've learned is you can't just barge into my office and I'm just going to address you as soon as you walk in. I used to do this even with my boss. If my boss walked into my office and barged in, I'd still be talking on the phone. I'm not going to stop just because the boss walked in, because I'm handling something that the boss would like me to handle. I'm doing work for them in that situation, right? Of course, for myself, but it's for them too. So I would just keep talking. And then if my boss needed me, if they left, then they would just come back later and come talk to me later. And I never had people constantly barging into my office because this is the way that I used to do things. My son started doing this at one point when I was teaching Buddhism. He started barging into my room. I would be on personal guidance sessions on Zoom in my room because I have a desk in my room, and he would barge into my room. Dad, I have an emergency. And I would just keep on talking to the student as if he wasn't even there. And I would just continue to talk to the student. And then after, 3, 4, 5 minutes, he would still be standing there. And I'd be like, yes, Bailan, what's your emergency? He said, my batteries in my remote control ran out. I need new batteries. And I was like, oh, okay. This isn't an emergency, son. I can handle that after I talk with the student, right? So then I needed to teach him these kinds of things. And he kept barging in every once in a while. But eventually he learned that when he barged in, Dad doesn't address him. And now he doesn't barge into my room anymore. He knows that if the house is burning down or something like that, yeah, come let Dad know. But if it's just something like remote control, batteries are not working and not functioning, that's not an emergency. So he's learned that over time. So you're teaching people how to interact with you all the time. You don't need to overtly teach someone. Like if a coworker barges into your office, you don't have to say, hey, look, I told you 1,000,000 times, don't barge into my office. Wait until I'm done, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to do that. That's putting your expectations on someone. You just function in a way that you know is wise, which is doing one thing at a time. And more people realize, hey, whenever you barge into that person's office, they're not going to just get off the phone and address you. So this is the way that you're teaching people, is through your actions and through your decision making. So I encourage you to just do one thing at a time and handle one person at a time as you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. This is going to help you promote concentration and focus in your mind. Because when the mind's calm, you will have mindfulness or awareness of mind. When you have mindfulness, you will have then concentration or focus. And when you have concentration and focus, you'll actually be able to access your wisdom. And then you'll be able to make wise decisions that's going to move your career forward. But if you allow your mind to be all shaken up, meaning it's uncalm, you're not going to have awareness of mind or mindfulness. You're not going to have focus and concentration, and therefore you're not going to be able to bring forth your wisdom, making wise decisions in your day-to-day life to move your career forward. An example that I can give you of this, and you might have heard me share this before, that if you got a phone call that your mom has been in a terrible car accident and she's in the back of an ambulance being rushed to the hospital, if you have a craving, desire, attachment for your mom to be permanently healthy, your mind's going to be really shaken up in that situation. You might grab your car keys and rush out the door and hurry up and try to get to the hospital. Well, because of your lack of wisdom here, making unwise decisions, you could very easily get in a car accident on your way to the hospital. Or at the very least, you're going to show up to the hospital, your mind's going to be all frazzled, and the doctors and nurses are talking to you, trying to explain to you what's going on so that you can make some decisions to help your mom, and you're not going to be able to do that, right? So that unsteady mind, that shaken up mind, you don't have mindfulness or awareness of mind, you don't have concentration, and you can't access your wisdom. But if you understand the teachings of the Buddha and you've been training your mind with all these teachings, you know the last thing you're interested in doing is having your mind shaken up. You would like to practice equanimity. What equanimity is calmness and composure, evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. So when you hear that your mom's been in a terrible car accident, you need to understand, okay, this is impermanence. Mom cannot be permanently healthy. It's not possible. And whatever has happened to her, she's in the best place she could be, which is in the back of an ambulance with emergency medical technicians, and she's about to arrive to a hospital with sophisticated equipment, doctors and nurses. Let me just calmly make my way to the hospital, because if I get there in 10 minutes or I get there in 20 minutes, it's not going to change a thing for mom. Right? She's in the hands of the people that can actually help her. So let me calmly make my way to the hospital so then I can talk to the doctors and nurses, find out what's going on. I can understand that, and then I can start making decisions to help her. So this is why you'd like to maintain your calmness and composure at all times. Allowing the mind to go up into this really high excitement or this really low sadness, it's just allowing your mind to be shaken up. You would like a steady and stable mind so that then you can understand what's going on in your day-to-day activities and now make wise decisions to produce wholesome results or wholesome Dhamma for yourself. So this calmness is going to promote mindfulness, concentration, then you can access your wisdom, making wise decisions to produce wholesome Dhamma. In order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to have an extended period of time where you're making 100% wise decisions. Right now, that's not the case because you don't fully understand the natural law of karma. But that's what the Eightfold Path is doing for you. You're gradually bringing your practice up to the Eightfold Path, and now you need to live your life that way for an extended period of time, making 100% wise decisions in all situations. That's what's going to extinguish all your unwholesome karma. And now, having lived your life that way for multiple years, you will experience enlightenment. You'll see more and more of the qualities of enlightenment shining through in your mind. This is why you can't sit under a tree, meditate, and instantly get to enlightenment. This is a myth about the life of the Buddha. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. He had to bring his practice up to the Eightfold Path, and he had to live his life that way for an extended period of time in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So the same thing is true for you. That's what you're going to need to do. So that's why you're interested in making 100% wise decisions. And you can't do that when your mind's shaken up and it's uncalm. So that's why you're always working in this direction of calmness, mindfulness, concentration, and then making wise decisions in your day-to-day life. This is the Eightfold Path that you're going to need to practice all the individual steps. I shared this on Monday. I know some of you guys weren't here, but that class was recorded. It's on our YouTube channel. There's a playlist for this particular course. And I've taught this topic many times. I teach it probably 2, 3, 4 times a month in all the various courses and retreats that I share. And it's in the books, it's in audiobooks, it's in all these different things. So you can easily learn this. It just takes time and dedication where you can study the books, the audiobooks, the videos. There's even a study guide on our website. If you go to buddhadailywisdom.com, you can click on free books, and there's a study guide about halfway down that'll actually help you to study for this. And what some students like to do is they like to study the Eightfold Path for a few weeks or a few months, and then they will schedule an appointment with me to sit down and almost teach it to me to confirm that they actually understand it, because you're going to need to understand each one of these factors. If you ask me about any one of these factors, I can explain it to you just like that, because you need to deeply embed this in your mind. So this is part of what's helping your memory and your focus and concentration. Is this is the one teaching that you're going to actually need to memorize. You're going to need to make sure you have it deeply rooted in your mind, because you're not going to be able to practice it if you don't actually have it in your mind. So this is something that you're going to need to dedicate some time and effort to be able to develop for your personal life, but also your professional life too, because you're going to need to practice each one of these in your day-to-day work. You're going to need to practice every single step, including right speech, right action, and then, of course, right livelihood. But then you're also going to need to practice the mental discipline too. You're going to need to use your mindfulness to watch over your mind, because if you're in a business meeting and your boss is talking and you're daydreaming and you're thinking about, your trip to Thailand in 3 to 6 months from now, your mind's not practicing singleness of mind. You need to cut that off and bring it back to whatever it is that you're focused on in the business meeting. So there's all these steps that you need to learn and understand and know how to apply them in your day-to-day life. Then, as you've learned the Eightfold Path, there's the core practice that you can learn and practice that you're going to need in order to get to enlightenment. But then there's kind of like underlying messages or meanings behind each one of these factors that you can also apply kind of outside of the Eightfold Path, but kind of applying it in a way that's going to breed success in your career. So for example, if you remember right view, in the Eightfold Path, right view is teaching you the Four Noble Truths. It's teaching you the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. What the Buddha helps you to see in a way that you can independently verify is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's your own craving, desire, attachment that's causing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Essentially, what he's teaching you, in addition to all the detail, is to accept responsibility for your own feelings, your own emotions, your own intentions, your speech, your actions, to accept responsibility for that. Because what we tend to do in the unenlightened state is we blame things on other people. We think that it's other people that are causing our difficulties and struggles. And this isn't actually true. It's your own mind and your own decisions that's causing your difficulties and struggles. If it was other people that was causing you to have these struggles, you could never get to enlightenment, because you can't train 8 billion people to do things a certain way. So the underlying message, in addition to the Four Noble Truths and that it's craving that's causing your discontent feelings, is to accept responsibility for your own intentions, your feelings, your speech, your actions, and all these different things. Well, a way that you can apply this in your work environment is to accept and acknowledge responsibility for the projects and assignments that you take and that you have at work. That everything that you experience at work is a result of your decisions, not blaming your coworkers for the things that you experience. Instead, take responsibility for your own work products, right? And your own deadlines and your own projects and things like this. This is going to help you to succeed in your day-to-day livelihood. Then, in terms of right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, it's essential that you practice these at all times in your day as part of your livelihood. You're going to need to know what each one of these are and then apply it in your livelihood on a day-to-day basis, because this is going to help you to cultivate wholesome relationships in your livelihood. You can't be successful in a professional world just by yourself. You're going to need coworkers. You're going to need business partners. You're going to need customers. If you're going to excel and be successful in work, you're going to need to know how to have healthy relationships with people around you. And it's this that's really going to focus on that is right intention, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, ensuring that you're not causing harm in any of those ways. Then you're going to need to practice your right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration as part of your livelihood too, because this is focused on your mind, and your mind's highly involved in your day-to-day work. And this is going to help you hone your mind to the point where you can apply your effort and energy towards growing and developing in your livelihood. So this is everything that I have to share on this topic. If you guys have questions, you guys are welcome to let me know. You can ask any and all questions that you like, just like always. Is there anything you guys have to ask about applying the teachings of the Buddha in the workplace? Yes, sir.
So for me, one that I struggle is with the difference between being compliant or being non-attached. So for example, when I started meditating, I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate every day in the morning for 1 hour, let's say, right? And I was like, no matter what, I'm going to do it. But then I was starting to get attached to the schedule or to the goal. But then if I didn't do it, I felt like I was just being lazy because I could have done it. So I don't know, like the difference.
Okay, so you got to find the middle way here. If there's a craving, then your mind's going to be longing, yearning for it. And when you don't get it, you're going to have discontentedness like what you described. But if you never meditate, that's where your mind also isn't going to be able to go forward and be able to succeed either, right? So you need to learn how to come to the middle where you can meditate, but you understand your meditation is impermanent. That sometimes you're going to be able to do it at a certain time and other times you're not going to be able to. So for example, I was meditating one time in my room. It was kind of like my normal morning meditation. And I was meditating and like 3 minutes into the meditation, my son walks in and he's like, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." And I said, "Oh, I thought your mom was going to take you to school." He said, "Yeah, me too, but she's gone. I don't know where she's at. I need you to take me to school." And I was like, "Okay, I'll take you to school." If I was attached to meditation, I would have been discontent in that situation, right? But instead, I just went ahead, got up, took him to school. And then when I came home, I just meditated afterwards, right? So this is how you can observe your mind of whether or not you're attached to meditation or not. So the middle way is that you make wise decisions towards that goal and objective, but you don't hold on to it and crave permanence and base emotions on it. But you're also not over here where you're lackluster and not doing anything at all. Let me explain it this way too. I just sent an email to someone last night. There's this trip that I'm going to in the USA. I'm going to be teaching in California. I'm going to be teaching in Dallas, Texas. And this place I'm teaching in Dallas, Texas is a university. And they booked a auditorium where it seats 170 people. And then there's floor space where people could sit on the floor too. So this place could probably hold upwards of 200 people. I've never taught a 4-day course to 200 people before. I've taught for maybe 10, 15 minutes to 10,000 people before, but never an entire course, right? And I was like, wow, this is going to be a really great opportunity because at a university, you could actually really fill up this room because there's like 30,000 students. There's probably 10,000 faculty. You know, there's the local community. This place could actually fill up. And I was like, this would be great. So I'm not longing, yearning for this room to fill up, but I'm also not on the other side where I could care less. So what I did last night is I sent out emails to 11 different Buddhist temples in the Dallas, Texas area and informing them that we're having this event. And then I wrote to the organizer, the student who's learning with me in Dallas, and I said, hey, it would be really great if we fill up this room and the room is full of 170 people. I sent out an email to 11 different Buddhist temples and we'll see what happens. So I'm making these decisions to be able to help fill up this room, but then whatever happens, happens, right? So instead of longing, yearning for it and pushing and being upset if only one person shows up or nobody shows up, that's not where you're interested in being. But you're also not being over here where it's like, oh, well, they booked the room. I'll just show up. I get some free food while I'm there and get a free place to stay. I'll just kind of, hang out in Texas for a week, right? I'm not there either, right? I'm in the middle where I'm making wise decisions to send out advertisements on Facebook and sending emails to temples and things like this. And they're doing other stuff too to promote it. So we're in the middle where we're making wise decisions towards promoting this event. But whatever happens at the end of the day happens at the end of the day. You know, there might be two people there. Who knows, right? We never know. So you're not interested in having an expectation of what will or will not happen. So it's the same thing with your meditation, is that you make decisions wisely to meditate every day, and you have a plan to meditate every day, but you realize that that plan isn't going to happen exactly that way every day. So that's why I say 2 to 3 meditations per day, understanding that there might be a day where you only get one meditation in, or as you're building up your practice, there might even be a day where you don't get any in, and it totally slipped your mind. You didn't even remember. And then when that happens, instead of feeling guilty or shameful or anything like that, or pressuring yourself, you're just like, wow, I missed meditation. Let me get right back on that, right? And that way your mind isn't going into any kind of conditioned feelings based on this impermanence that's happened. So you just need to get to the point where you're not craving permanence, understanding your meditation practice is going to go up and down. Not only the time or frequency that you meditate, but the quality of your meditation is going to go up and down too, until the point that you get to enlightenment. But all the way to enlightenment, you can have periods of time where you're meditating for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and your mind is just congested with all kinds of stuff. But then like one day you just meditate and boom, you're noticing all this clarity and all this peacefulness in your mind. And that might last for several weeks. And there's all this peace and calmness in your mind. But then after that, well, wham, here comes the clutter again, right? And now you've got several weeks of clutter. So your meditation practice is impermanent, and you just need to get to the point where you're not forming feelings and emotions based on your meditation and what's going on, whether you do meditate or you don't meditate, or what's going on in your mind during meditation. Don't form emotions on any of these things, and just make wise decisions to meditate each day, being consistent, dedicated, and diligent to meditate each day. It's important not to judge your meditation. This is something that I got caught up in for a few weeks, where you might judge your meditation as this was a good meditation or a bad meditation. If you guys are doing that, I encourage you not to do that, because if you get to the end of your meditation, you're like, wow, this was such a good meditation. Wow, felt so great. Well, that means when you have a so quote unquote bad meditation, you're going to feel sad or frustrated because things were kind of congested in your mind. Instead, think of it as all meditation is beneficial, because even if you get to the end of your meditation, you're like, whoa, the mind is really busy today. There's a lot going on in my mind. That was very beneficial because you have mindfulness. You have awareness of mind. That's the reason why you know that your mind is busy, because you were sitting in meditation, you were practicing meditation, and your mindfulness or awareness of mind alerted you that you've got a really busy mind today. That was beneficial for you, because now if there's any big impactful decisions that you need to make, maybe you delay that. Maybe you wait a day or two before you make those decisions. So don't get caught up in the idea of you having good meditations and bad meditations. All meditation is beneficial, no matter what. So don't judge your meditation as good or bad, and just know that every single meditation you do is actually beneficial and it's helpful, because that'll take you out of that forming feelings based on your meditation, whether you did meditation or not, or the quality of your meditation. Don't form feelings on this. Just understand, meditate each day. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Okay. Other questions about this or anything else? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
About generosity at work. It's about how to know when is like enough generosity towards a coworker. For example, they feel entitled to my generosity at times because I always say yes, and so the time I say no, they blame me for like their disgrace because just one time I said no. And I want to know how to balance this, or how can I?
Sure.
Yeah, that's my question.
If someone's getting angry they're causing their own anger. It's not you that's causing that. This is something that I taught on Monday. It's in the Four Noble Truths, where you can see what their mind is doing is their mind is longing, yearning. It's having a craving or a desire, a certain want or expectation. And they can only be happy when they get what they want. And if they don't get what they want, they get painful feelings like anger, frustration, and so forth. And then when they experience those painful feelings, they think it's coming from you. So they're either going to push you aside, they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to put their expectations on you and try to control you and pressure you to do things their way. This is because they're trying to get their cravings fulfilled. So you need to understand that it's okay for you to not practice generosity. And if somebody gets angry or frustrated, that's their own mind causing that. What I'm going to teach you next after this topic is how to make that better for people. But nonetheless, you just need to always keep in mind that whenever anybody's angry, including yourself, or frustrated or any other discontent feeling, it's always coming from one's own mind. It's not the outside world that's causing that. So when you're practicing generosity, you need to practice it from the middle way. Whereas if you were overextending yourself and practicing generosity excessively, you're not going to have the resources that you need. But if you're never practicing generosity, you're going to be quite selfish. So everything needs to be from the middle way, including generosity, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. This is going to help train your mind to let go. And when you're practicing generosity with certain people, you would like to spread it out so that their mind doesn't get attached to your generosity. So if you're helping a coworker, for example, at work, you're not interested in helping them every day, or not even necessarily every week, because their mind can get attached to it, right? And now they're expecting it, right? So you'd like to spread it out so that you can do it once, and then you can see how their mind responds to that. What happens next? Do they keep coming to you and asking over and over and over and over again for you to do that thing? And if they do, don't do it, because their mind's already attached. You only did it once, or you only did it twice, and their mind's now craving it. And now if you keep doing it, it's like feeding a monster, and the monster gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So you'd like to do it one time and then step back and see how they function. Do they have craving? Do they get conceit? Do they start putting demands on you? And if so, then you know not to do that for a really long period of time. And then ultimately, if their mind has let go and you've seen that, then you can start doing things again, but still spread it out and do it from the middle way in terms of your own ability, but also do it from the middle way that you observe how the other person responds to that generosity. Do they become needy to the point where they're constantly asking you for this thing? That's their craving. They're not standing up on their own 2 feet. I'll explain it to you like this. Like, there's dogs here at the temple. There's a monk in the back. He has these like 5 or 6 dogs. And when I first came here, they were pretty bitter and pretty harsh. They used to even attack me sometimes. And understanding the natural law of Gotama, that they were having craving, anger, and ignorance, and I needed to practice generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, I started buying some food and I started feeding them. And now they stopped attacking me because they got what they wanted, right? They were getting their craving fulfilled. Well, even then, when I was feeding them, I was spreading it out so that they wouldn't become dependent on me for their food. I would only feed them once, twice, maybe at the very most 3 times a week. I would feed them because they needed to be able to find food other places. It wasn't just me. I wasn't interested in them being dependent on me. So your coworkers obviously are not dogs, but the unenlightened mind functions very much like an animal, because even though I was feeding them only once, twice, or 3 times a week, they would come over here. They would wait for me. When I would get here, they would come running to me, and they would wait at the door for me to come, because they were like, oh, our food's coming. And then I just wouldn't feed them. And then eventually they stopped being attached. So human beings can have the same thing. If you're feeding them food, generosity, or any kind of generosity, even if it's just helping them with their work, they can become like that attached dog where they just constantly want it from you. So you need to spread it out so that you're not allowing them to become dependent on you, and that they have other ways of accomplishing that thing. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't see any other questions anywhere. So this next topic, it's only going to take me like 10 minutes probably to teach it to you, maybe 15 at the most. So I'm just going to move right into this next topic, okay? And then we're going to finish our class. It's called The Art of the Friendly No, How to Say No Without Saying No. What this is going to do for you is it's going to help you to maintain your healthy relationships, both personally and professionally, where one of the things that the unenlightened mind does not like to hear is the word no. If somebody invites you to a party or a housewarming party and you say, no, I am not going to be able to come. Ugh. They don't like to hear that because they have a craving. They're longing, yearning for you to come to their party. And now when they hear that no, their craving's not getting fulfilled, they're going to get angry and frustrated. They're going to attribute it to you. They're going to think you're the one who's causing it. And they're either going to push you aside, they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to start putting their expectations on you and pressuring you. Come on. Like, you're my best friend. How can you not come to my party? Come on. You're like the life of the party. Come on, come on, come on. Right? They're going to do these kinds of things. Right? So you would like to be able to get to the point where you can say no without saying no. So I'm going to teach you how to do this because it's going to preserve your relationships. Remember, if anybody ever gets angry or mad, they're causing it themselves. It's not you. But you can practice in such a way where their mind is less likely to become angry or frustrated. Because in addition to the Buddha teaching you how to train your own mind to get to this peace and joy, he's teaching you how to navigate the world of unenlightened beings. And there's lots of unenlightened beings out there in the world. So if you can kind of modify your conduct in such a way that it's less likely for people to get angry, this is helpful for you. But just understand, even as an enlightened being, you're going to be in a rare situation where someone's going to be angry and frustrated around you. And they're going to attribute that to you. They're going to think that it's you that's causing that. And your mind will be unaffected by that by the time you get to enlightenment. But just understand that even if you're practicing these teachings flawlessly, it's still possible for people to get angry or frustrated around you. But the longer and the more you practice them, those type of things will be fewer and far between. 99.99999% of the time, you'll be experiencing nothing but peace and joy with the people around you. Your own mind will be peaceful and joyful, but the people around you also will be the same way. But you're still going to have certain situations where people are bitter and harsh and hostile. I even have this here at the temple every once in a while, maybe a few times a year. Somebody will show up here and they'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to me, towards just some, erroneous thing. One time there was a student here that asked me a question about the wars in Ukraine and the wars in Russia. And I was helping that person, helping them to understand how to deal with this and process it in their mind. And one of the things that I said at the beginning is I said, it's unfortunate that these wars are happening. And there was this other student who just didn't like that. She thought that I should be angry and that I should be frustrated and I should be condemning the war and I should be talking in degrading and damaging ways towards the people who are in these wars. And that's just not the way I think. And I don't talk that way. But she had the expectation that I wouldn't say it is unfortunate that these wars would occur. She expected me to condemn the wars and talk very strongly and angrily about these wars. And the fact that I wasn't angry about the wars, she got angry, right? Because she was expecting me to have that same amount of anger as her. So even when you're practicing these teachings flawlessly, you can have people that get angry and frustrated. I had another student one time who came here for an appointment. They had a lunch appointment at 11 o'clock at the end of one of my classes because I teach up until 10:30, and then some students will usually stick around and ask me questions. And the student showed up at 10:45, and they were waiting for me up to the 11 o'clock appointment. Well, there was a student here that was asking me some really deep questions, so I was helping that person. And then I didn't stop that conversation in order to address that student, and they were sitting off to the side, and they got so angry and they started yelling and hollering at me. I'm here at 11 and you're not going to lunch with me, and how dare you talk to that student, and I'm the one who scheduled your time and you know that I'm supposed to be here. And whoa, right? This is that person causing their own anger. They had a craving to go out to lunch with me at 11 o'clock, right? And the fact that I was helping this other student, they didn't like that, right? So you're still going to have these things happen occasionally, no matter how well you practice the teachings. But you can minimize this with what I'm going to teach you here, okay? So it's called The Art of the Friendly No, how to say no without saying no. It kind of sounds like a title to a book, right? Some students have asked me, like, you should write a book about this, okay? So here's what I have to share with you. The problem here is that the unenlightened mind doesn't typically like hearing the word no, and also other variations of that, like can't, don't, won't, and things of this nature. The solution is that it's best to not use these words and instead find alternatives to communicate what it is that you're trying to communicate. So what I mean by this is, let's just say I was in a work environment or any other environment, and someone said, hey, David, can I borrow some money, right? Can I borrow some money? Maybe it's a very significant amount of money. And maybe I'm not interested in letting this person borrow the money. And maybe I don't even have this money to actually loan it to them. So instead of saying, no, I'm not going to let you borrow the money, because right away they have a craving for this money. And when they hear no from me, they think I'm the one who's causing those painful feelings. And they're going to push me away. They're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile. They're going to put their expectations on me and try to pressure me to give them this money. So instead of saying, no, I'm not going to give you this money, what I would say is, hey, I really appreciate that you think of me in such fond ways that you're willing to ask me for this money. Let me take a look at what I have and what's available to me. And if I can let you borrow it, I will let you know. Right? So I haven't said no, and I haven't said yes. I said, hey, I'm going to take a look at my finances, and if I can let you borrow it, I will let you know, right? Or let's just say somebody is going to invite me to a party. Hey, David, I bought this brand new house, and we're having a big housewarming party. Will you come to our party? And maybe in my mind, I already know that I'm not going to this party, right? So what I'm going to say is, hey, I really appreciate you inviting me. That helps me to see that you really value me as a friend. I'm going to need to look over my schedule. And if I can come, I will let you know, right? And now if they're craving, they might actually say, oh, come on, David, come on. We're going to give you a microphone and you can teach Buddhism at this party and we'll all meditate. And we really want you to come to this party. Like, come on, come on, come on. Well, if they're craving like that and they're pressuring you, that's all the more reason not to go. Because if you allow that craving to be there, now you're feeding that monster, right? Even if they're talking like this, David, we're going to give you a microphone. You can talk for as long as you like, and you can teach the Buddhist teachings, and you can tell everybody how unwise they are to be using drugs and alcohol at this party. We'll set you up in the middle of the living room, and you can talk as long as you like. If they were doing that kind of thing, that would be all the more reason not to go, right? Because they're craving, right? As long as you fulfill that craving, then the very next time they have an event and the next time and the next time, they're going to continue to do this kind of thing. So you need to learn how to say no without saying no. And there's many different situations that you might encounter in this kind of situation, whether it's a birthday party, whether it's a housewarming party, whether it's a baby shower, whether it's a kid's baptism, whether it's borrowing money, any number of different things. If you can let them borrow something, or you know that you're actually going to come, you can go ahead and answer that way, right? But if you're truly thinking that you're either not going to go or you're on the fence, it's better to give this kind of answer where you're not saying no. Because when they hear that word no or don't or won't or can't, their mind oftentimes goes into anger and frustration. And they're either going to push you away, they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or they're going to put their expectations on you and try to control you. I had a friend one time when I just got out of college. I was probably out of college for maybe 6 months. And my grandmother was very nice. She helped me to buy this little condo, and I was paying the mortgage on it. And I was living very tightly with my money. I was eating like noodles I was still eating college food while I was still working, right? I barely had any money to support myself. And I was paying all these bills and stuff. And my friend was still in college. He was in his senior year of college. And he came to me on a Sunday morning, and he came to my house. He drove probably 3-4 hours to get to where I was. And he sat me down and he said, "Hey, David, I need to borrow some money to pay my tuition at school. Can you let me borrow $300 some, $400 some?" And I said, "No, I can't let you borrow that." And he was shocked because we were really good friends, right? And he started to kind of like pressure me, like, come on. Can you give me this money? And I said, "Let me ask you a question. Now, what did you do last night? You said you went out with the guys last night, right?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we went to the bar. We did this, we did that." And I was like, "How many drinks did you have?" He's like, "Oh, about 10 or 12 drinks." And I was like, "How much did that cost?" He was like, "Oh, about $120, $150. And I was like, "Why didn't you use that money for your tuition?" He didn't like that, right? I never heard from that guy ever again, right? And that's because I didn't understand these teachings, right? He was a really good friend. We were actually spending a lot of time together. We had a great time together. He was a really nice guy. In fact, prior to college, he never even had any alcohol or anything like that. But when he went to college, he started changing into that kind of thing. And a lot of us do, right, when we go to college. So that was the unwise thing to say. And it ended up resulting in him pushing me away, right? Because he felt those painful feelings. He had a craving for the money and he pushed me away. Whereas if I would have said, "Hey," his name was Jeremy. "Hey, Jeremy, I really appreciate that you think of me as a friend in such a way that you could even ask me for this money. And you drove all the way over here to be able to see me. I'm going to need to look at my finances. And if I can help you, I'll let you know." If I would have had that wisdom, we'd probably still be friends today, right? But unfortunately, I didn't have that wisdom at the time. So you would like to be able to work with this and practice this in these situations. And you'll see that it actually goes better for you in your day-to-day life, and you'll be able to preserve your relationships. So do you guys have any questions on this topic? Yeah, if you guys would like to ask questions, feel free to get a mic. And also, if you would like, you can actually give me examples yourself, because sometimes students like to do that. They're like, "Hey, David, I've got this situation. Can you help me figure out what would be wise to say in this situation?" So feel free to share your own examples.
You said, I was going to ask you, what if it's not easy and they know that you have money and you say it nicely that I can't because my finances doesn't allow me, but they know what you have?
Yeah, I don't suggest you use the word "can't." Instead, say, "Hey, I've got a lot of things that are coming up for me in terms of expenses, and I'm going to need to really look over things carefully. And if I'm able to help you, I will let you know."
Like I got into it with my sister and she didn't talk to me for over 2 years.
That's fine.
Because she was in a situation and she needed money and she never calls. And that was the only time I tried to reach out and say, "Hey, hi," because we hadn't been talking. And I thought I'd make the first move. And all she turned around was ask for money. And I said, "No, I'm sorry. I can't give it to you," because I knew she had so much money and she wasted her money. And I asked her, "Where's your money?" And she got offended.
Right. That's why I'm teaching you this.
Yeah.
Right. Because the "no, I can't help you."
Yeah.
That's going to trigger their craving.
Yeah.
So you would like to use what I'm sharing here. And this will have a better opportunity to be successful. It's not guaranteed that they won't get angry, right? Because if their craving gets triggered, they can very easily become angry, but it's going to be less likely when you use stuff like this. Yeah. Your mic went out. Your mic went out. It's okay. We don't need to hear the whole backstory, but you understand the teaching, right? Okay. Perfect. Yes, sir.
Might have 3 questions, but first one would be, when is the second answer comes, right? When they checking in on you, following up, whether you made your decision, how do you approach that?
Yeah. What I would say is I need some more time. I need to think about this, because what they're doing is they're craving. That's why they're checking in with you. "Hey, man, I talked with you 2 weeks ago and I really need that money. Can you help me?" I was like, "Well, have you had an opportunity to check with some other people?" Because that's another way you can say it up front. You can say, "Hey, I'm going to need to check my finances. If I'm able to help you, I'll let you know." And they might say, "Oh, man, like I really need to know like in the next 48 hours. Right? Or else I'm going to be late on this bill." Well, what I would suggest for you, Jeremy, is maybe you could talk with some other people, because I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get back to you in such a short time frame. Do you have some other people that you could talk with that could potentially help you in this situation? So you kind of help move them along to some other options, essentially showing them that you're not a viable option without saying the word no. So you can do that up front, or you can do it on the backside when they come back to you, because they're having craving is what they're doing. Because normally if you ask somebody and you say, hey, can I borrow some money? And you're like, hey, I need to check my finances, and if I can, I'll let you know. Okay, done. Don't need to talk to this person again. They're going to let me know. But when they come back to you and they keep asking over and over, that's their craving, and their mind has to let that go. So that's why you would like to kind of distance yourself and just kind of put more and more space between your communication, but also sending them potentially in another direction to be able to see, do you have other people that you can talk to about this? And if they say, no, I don't have anyone else. Okay, well, that's something that you might consider to see if there's any other people that can help you, because right now, looking at my finances, it's looking pretty tight, but if I can let you use this money, I will surely let you know. Or however you say it, because you're not interested in lying. That's the important thing, that you don't lie. And everything that I'm sharing here is not a lie. It's just helping them to see, like, hey, I'm not a very viable option for you, but you're not using the word no, can't, won't, don't, those kinds of things.
Thank you. This might be in the teachings, just getting to, to this, and I've been, don't want to use the word craving, but longing to, find these teachings to maybe not eliminate the suffering, even though I do have the belief that it's possible through this practice, but get to, get to this state of mind more peaceful. Guilt is something that I've been dealing with for the longest time, and I've eliminated a lot of it through therapy towards the family members, because that's the way I was brought up. So whenever I think that it's not there anymore, and I am so peaceful with myself and content, and I know everybody has their own journey, but with the family members, especially like being in Thailand, even though I'm on my own journey, but it's like, there's negative 25 Celsius in places where the family resides, and so when they do need money, but I know they might be wasteful with their money or not smart in my perception or opinion, which I'm not entitled to say that, but I don't have problems saying no anymore, or saying no in wise ways, because I know I've helped a lot, and I know when I can, but the guilt settles very gently, and then it grows, and towards the end of the day, meditation does help, by the way, but it's still there. And if you have an insight of dealing with that, if it's your, closest person that you don't want them to suffer, but they do, and you kind of get on the field where you feel the same thing. So if you have an insight on how to go about that.
Yeah, that don't want them to suffer, that's the craving that's producing your guilt. So if you get rid of that, then you'll understand that they are going to be without things sometimes. And that's their choice. They're making the choices in their life about where to spend money and how to acquire money. And whatever they're experiencing in terms of a lack of money, their decisions are what's leading to that. So you're going to need to get comfortable with the struggle. Remember, we talked about that in other classes, with other people struggling. That's part of their life. That's what they're choosing. So it's your not wanting them to struggle that's producing the guilt. And you've got to use the Eightfold Path to be able to cut that off and let it go and eliminate that, understanding that these people are going to struggle, and it's their decisions that are producing that struggle, not your decisions. Since we're talking about money, and this has come up a few times, let me share this with you, is if you're ever going to allow someone to borrow money, what I suggest you do is that you only allow someone to borrow enough money that if you never got it back, it would not impact your life in any significant way. Because if you understand the universal truth of impermanence and you're letting people borrow money, there's going to be some people who pay you back, and there's going to be some people who don't. It's only a matter of time before someone doesn't pay you back because of the universal truth of impermanence. So understanding this, that you may or may not get this money back. When you're letting someone borrow money, there might be an agreement for them to pay you back, but you need to be sure that you've only allowed someone to borrow enough money that if they didn't pay it back, it's not going to negatively impact your life, right? Because there's going to be someone who doesn't pay it back. So if you've got $10,000 in the bank and that's your entire life savings, and you let someone borrow $9,000 and they don't pay you back, you've got a lot of problems. But if you've got $10,000 in the bank and you let someone borrow $90 and they don't pay you back, you're good to go, right? No big deal. So that's what you would like to do, is always make sure that you're only allowing someone to borrow enough money that it's not going to impact you negatively if they don't pay it back. Of course, you have an agreement to pay it back. That's the goal. That's the plan. That's what they've agreed to. But because of the universal truth of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before someone doesn't pay you back. So don't allow enough money to go out the door that if you don't get it back, it's going to negatively impact you. And that keeps you protected, that you're not going to be in dire straits should this money not come back. And let's just say somebody needs to borrow $300, right? You don't have to give them all of it, right? You might even say to them like, hey, look, I can let you borrow $100, and that's something that I'm able to let you borrow, but I'm not going to be able to allow you to borrow the other 200. Is this something that you could find from somebody else? Because I don't really have the resources to go up to the full 300. Would 100 be enough for you? If you're interested in letting them borrow it, right? You should never do that based on craving, because you don't want them to suffer. But if you're going to let someone borrow money and $100 is your threshold, you can do that, right? There's no harm in you doing that. So keep this in mind as you're potentially letting people borrow money, because you're not interested in having dire straits if this person doesn't pay you back, because it's only a matter of time before someone doesn't pay you back. It's going to happen.
And last one, don't want it to come up as a joke, but do you ever go like, whoa, craving much? Or how do you go about your life with some knowledge that you're acquiring, which you kind of want people around you to understand or come to it, but they're not asking for your advice? Do you ever slightly insert some wisdom in the conversations when you're answering to the people like, no, or I can't, or...
Yeah, you can skillfully help people to learn, but you need to be really skillful, because if you're giving unsolicited guidance or you're doing it based on your own craving, it's going to produce unwholesome results, because unsolicited guidance is coming from your own ego and your own craving. And now this is going to produce unwholesome results because their ego is going to come at you, right? So you can do things. So like one time, I'll give you an example. This doesn't necessarily relate to this, but my wife said to me one time, I was in her room and she was getting really angry at something I was talking about. And she said, "You're making me so angry, blah, 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 blah. Get out of here. You're making me so angry." And I said, "Oh, really? I'm the one who's making you angry? Okay, so that means if I leave, since I'm the one who's causing you to be angry, if I leave, you won't be angry anymore." And then I walked away and I left. And I went out the door and I said goodbye. And I left. And I came back like 4 or 5 hours later. And I could tell she was still grumpy and irritable. And I walked into her room. I said, "Hey, honey," I said, "are you still angry, or did your anger leave as soon as I left?" And then she's like, and, sometimes when I joke with her like that, it'll like put her in a better mood, because her mind will cut it off. So I can do those kinds of things, like with my wife, with my son. I can, because I know their personality. I know how to help them a lot. But if it was like a neighbor, I wouldn't do that kind of stuff, right? Like that this person, they don't really know me that well. I'm not going to do those kinds of things. But for people that are really close to you and they'll heed your advice, you can do these kind of skillful things. But you need to know the Eightfold Path really well so that you're practicing right intention, right speech, and right action, and you're not causing any harm. And it needs to come from a place of loving kindness, right? Generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Because if it's coming out of craving, anger, and ignorance, then it's going to produce unwholesome results.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Okay. Yes, sir.
So I have a question about saying no, just because I noticed this last month that I did a trip and a lot of people wanted to see me because I went to the place that I used to live. And I was saying no because I had some other priorities and stuff. But I noticed that I was getting like attached to the power of me being in control and being able to say no because this is my time and I do whatever I want with it. You know what I mean? So so how do I go at it? Like do I say yes just so that I'm not always in control even though I don't want to see them? You know what I mean?
So they're inviting you to something?
Or they want to see me or they want to go eat or
So this is easy. Like you just say things like, "Oh, you would like to spend some time with me? Oh, that's a great idea. I really appreciate you being interested in spending time with me. I'm going to need to look at some of the other things that I got going on, and if I'm able to spend time with you, I'll let you know. I really enjoy spending time with you. It's really great, but my schedule is pretty packed right now. I'm just going to need to look over it and let you know if I'm able to spend time with you." Same kind of thing, just different topic.
But if I notice that I like to be able to say no.
What's that?
If I like that I'm the one that can choose to say no to the person.
You would like to say no.
No, that I noticed that I was liking to say no.
That you enjoy it to say no.
Yeah. Just because I felt like I was in control of the situation.
I see. You can practice however you like. What I'm sharing with you here is this is the best way to do it, because when they hear that word no, their craving isn't getting fulfilled. They're going to get painful feelings. They're going to attribute it to you. And you're going to see it's going to damage your relationships. So in terms of getting to harmonious relationships, if you modify your practice slightly like this, you'll see more beneficial results in your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, you have a question? Yep.
I have sort of example. I want to know how to deal with it.
Okay.
I have a friend. At that time, she's been very hard time. I know, and we talked a lot. There's a particular one time we were on the phone for a long time. All about the talking is about her. It's all about her. And very interesting. During the talking, I think she's on the earbud, and she's making things around. All I heard from this side is very loud, like pong, ping, those things for a long time. So at that time, I may have other things to do, and also I may feel I had enough. So I say something, just stop the talking. This time we talk later, this sort of thing. Okay, after days or weeks, so this person talk about this. She said she was hurt for that situation. I cut up the phone. I would like to know what better things I can do at that time and after. Actually, obviously, this affect our friendship until, now.
Okay. So when you hear that, when she says, I was hurt when you got off the phone, you know right away she has craving, desire, attachment to that conversation and possibly to you too. You know that. And now, since she's coming to you and saying, I was hurt, this is like her reaching out for help. That's where you might say something like, would you like some help to understand why you are hurt? Because it's not me that's causing this, but I can help you to understand why your mind is experiencing these painful feelings. And she's either going to say yes or no. And if she says, no, I'm not interested, okay, I understand. But just so you know, it's not me that's causing these feelings, but I understand that's what you think. But if you ever would like to learn and understand why your mind's experiencing that, I will help you, right? And if she says, yes, I would like to know, and then you say, okay, well, I can help you to understand. And that's where I don't think any of you guys are probably prepared to explain to someone the Four Noble Truths and help them understand because you're still learning yourself. That's where I suggest you send them a link to one of the videos where I've taught the Four Noble Truths. And you can say to them, you say, oh, you would like some help to understand this? Yes, I would. Okay, how about if I send you a link to a video and there's a teacher that's going to help you to understand how your mind causes these feelings. And then after you watch the video, then you and I can talk about it. Or you could talk to the teacher as well, because that's going to help them to get what they need, which is they need that breakthrough to the Four Noble Truths. Until they understand the three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths, they will still firmly believe that it's you that's causing those feelings. Even someone who sat in a class like this for 5 days, some of you guys still might think that it's other people that are causing your feelings. It's hard for the mind to see this truth and then be able to see it in all situations. You might go out there today and blame other people for the feelings that you have, even after having sat in a course like this for 5 days. So this person, if she watches the Four Noble Truths, don't think that she's just going to snap her fingers and instantly everything's going to get better for her. It's a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, but that's the start. That's the beginning. If they don't have a breakthrough to the Four Noble Truths, they don't have any opportunity to improve what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And then ultimately, you need to get to the point where you're not clinging to the relationship, understanding that this relationship is impermanent and it's going to end someday. And if she chooses to go away from you and you never see her again, so be it. You're going to need to get comfortable with that. That's her choice. Mm-hmm.
I would like to know at the beginning when I cut the phone, is any, good way to say it?
Mm-hmm. What do you mean a good way to say what?
When I cut off the phone, it's a very good, better way to say no.
Yeah. So if someone's talking and you're choosing to get off the phone, I would say, hey, I don't know her name. I might not even be able to pronounce it. I don't know, but let's just say her name's Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca, it's been nice talking to you. I need to get going. I have some other things to do today. We'll talk another time. Be well. Right? You just get off. But just remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't plug and play, right? It's not like there's this one stock answer that's going to apply in every single situation that you're in. That would be a permanent answer for every single situation, and there's no such thing. So you need to take in the variables at that moment and decide what would be wise, right? Because if she's telling you that her mom just died and she's in tears, and if you were like, all right, Barbara, all right, Rebecca, I got to go now. I got some other things to do. Have a good day. That's probably not the best thing, right? You might say something like, I understand this really is affecting you, and I understand you're sad here. We can talk about this another time. Right now is not such a good time for me, but if you'd like to talk another time, I'd be more than welcome to help you and sit down and listen to some of the things that are going on for you, right? So you're going to come across in a different way. So you've got to take in the variables and figure out what would be the wisest thing. And it's the right speech that's going to guide you in that, because moving to this higher consciousness doesn't mean you see the world as black and white. It's not like there's one way to do every single thing. You've got to take in the variables, make a wise decision, and use the Eightfold Path as your guide, so that make sure you apply all the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in each situation. That way, you're not trying to just have a stock answer for every situation. I don't know how it is in Canada, because you guys live in Canada, but like in the US, there's these little stock answers that if someone says, hey, I fought in the Vietnam War, people are like, oh, thank you for your service, right? Or, oh, my mom died. Sorry for your loss, right? There's like these little stock answers that people think is like somehow the right thing to say. But that's not necessarily the best thing to say in each one of those situations. You would like to practice in a way that you're thinking about this person and who they are and what they're sharing with you, what's going on in your own mind, and then share something that is going to be beneficial using those 5 factors, speaking at the proper time, which you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Is that everything? Oh, yes, sir.
I'm not sure whether my question is related to the topic, but should we use negative positives? Like, no worries, don't worry about it, or it doesn't matter. And yeah,
there's no harm in those kinds of things. Like the Buddhist teachings aren't to that level of detail, right? He's teaching you the natural laws to speak at the proper time, to speak the truth, speak gently, speak beneficially, and speak with a mind of loving kindness. And I went into details on Monday of what each one of these things are, and it's in the book too. You can read it in the book. So saying no worries, there's no harm in that. Right? You haven't caused any harm. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to not cause harm through your intentions, your speech, your actions, or your livelihood and things like this. And there's no harm in those specific words.
Thank you. So we can use like negative positives in that sense.
Yeah, I've never heard that term before, but based on what you're sharing with me, if I understand what a negative positive is, yeah, there's no harm in saying no worries.
Essentially, it's positive.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Correct.
There's no harm in saying something like no worries, right? So each situation is different, right? That's what sometimes people come to the teachings of the Buddha. They're kind of looking for this decision tree. They're looking for this kind of black and white, that if this happens, do this, and if that happens, do that. And you're not going to get that from the teachings of the Buddha, and you'll never get to enlightenment that way. You need to be able to understand the natural laws and then respond in such a way that is wise based on those natural laws, using your higher consciousness and thinking through. So I don't have like these stock answers that I use in each individual situation and each conversation that I'm in. I'm paying attention to each conversation and I'm saying what is wise in that situation. I'm not having any kind of stock answers or anything like that. I'm practicing those 5 factors of well-spoken speech in each individual conversation. So that's what you're going to need to do too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so this brings our course to an end. As I shared with you guys, we're going to end class early. So I'll just kind of wrap things up by saying this to you guys is first, thank you for your dedication to learning and understanding the teachings of the Buddha. It's been 5 days of sharing with you guys. And I know that as you're here learning and growing and developing, it's sometimes challenging to confront some of the things that you thought about the world and see that the Buddha's teachings are maybe exactly opposite of what you've always thought about the world. But that's actually a really good place to be because you're learning and growing and developing. One of the most beneficial things in life is having harmonious relationships, being able to relate to people in a harmonious way and not have anger and frustration in your relationships is one of the most rewarding and fulfilling things ever. You know, you'll struggle in relationships as the mind is unenlightened. You will struggle. You will have difficulties with your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, all these people that are closest to you. You will have struggles. But it's important to understand that those struggles can be resolved through training your own mind. Oftentimes people think that we need to get mom or dad to do things a certain way. And if I can just convince them to not do it this way, or if I can get this person to not do things in this particular way, they think that that's going to solve their problems. But that doesn't solve their problems. These people in the world around you, they are never going to do the things your way. Never. They're never going to do things your way. But you can train your mind to love them unconditionally and that you're not craving for them to do things your way. And this is where your peace and your joy and your liberation comes in. Sometimes when people come to this course titled Harmony in Relationships, they might think it's going to be all about teaching other people to do things our way. And what they realize maybe halfway through the course is, oh my gosh, this course is about me changing. It's about me improving. It's not about other people and changing other people. Like that talk that I gave on practicing in the world of the unknowing, relationships with non-practitioners. Sometimes people think like that talk is all going to be about changing the other people. But what you saw is it's all about changing your own mind, eliminating your own wants and expectations. So keep in mind that you will have challenges in your relationships as long as you're unenlightened. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have cultivated enough wisdom that you'll be able to have harmonious relationships with everybody and anybody. They may not be able to have harmonious relationships with you. They might still get angry when you say a particular thing or two, but you'll know that you're practicing wise speech and right speech, and you know you're not causing any harm, and it's their own mind that's causing those difficulties and struggles. So you'll be able to be harmonious with everybody and anybody. You won't feel the guilt and the shame and these other feelings that you're having. It takes gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to get to this point. So if you keep learning, keep growing, keep developing, this is what's going to lead you to harmonious relationships. You need to make the Eightfold Path a real focal point of your study. Many of you guys, you just started learning with me. You really need to focus on the Eightfold Path with the words of the Buddha and study that in detail. Even if you've studied other places before, be sure that you study the words of the Buddha on the Eightfold Path and really ingrain that in your mind. And then if you'd like to sit down and talk about it, you can sit down with me and I will help you to make sure that you've committed it to your memory and you understand it so that then you can actually practice it. And then when you're ready to learn more, there's lots of opportunities for you to do this. There's continued support that you can actually get where you actually can learn through books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes. There's in-person, online courses, classes, retreats. There's ongoing programs that I have. You'll find these on our website. You can even get personal guidance, either in person or online, where you can sit down and talk with me, because it's one thing to learn in a class like this. It's a whole nother thing to apply it to your day-to-day life. This is why I haven't really written about many of these topics that are in this course, because it's very challenging to write about these, because each situation is unique, and you need to be able to learn the unique situations and then how to apply these teachings in those unique situations. So wherever you'd like to sit down and talk, you're welcome to do that. And then we have a Facebook group that you can actually get involved in, and you can learn in there as well, because I'm the only one who answers questions. You can post them in there, and then I'll answer your questions. And you might actually learn from other people's questions too. So some people like to get in there to be able to learn. So all of this is available for you at no cost. You can get help to progress on this path to enlightenment. What you would like to do is be attending weekly classes, either in person or online. So you're gradually trickling the teachings into your mind. And you'd like to commit some time to reading this first book, about 10 to 20 minutes a day, just gradually reading this first book over a consistent long-term period. Because you need to not read it for completion. You need to read it so that you can independently verify each individual thing that I'm teaching you. Then you're going to need to develop a generosity practice, or you're regularly practicing generosity on a daily basis. Same thing with your moral conduct. You're going to need to gradually improve your moral conduct on a daily basis. And you're going to need to build up your meditation practice. These three things are called the way of practice. The Buddha, one time during his life, was asked by a student, hey, can you just boil your teachings down for me? Like, what should I be doing on a day-to-day basis in order to be able to get to enlightenment? Because you need the deep teachings in order to get to enlightenment. But this person was like, hey, can you just kind of like summarize, what can I do on a day-to-day basis to get to enlightenment? And he said, daily, practice generosity every day, practice improving your moral conduct every day, and practice meditation every day. This is your daily practice of doing those three things. So you would like to dedicate your time to working on these three things. And then where you need help, seek guidance from a teacher as you need help. Okay? So again, thank you all for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop. If there's any generosity that you've practiced with me, I really like to share with you. I appreciate that. If you're here sweeping or taking out trash, or maybe you've given me some food or snacks, or maybe you've put some money into our donation box in order to help us pay for electric or water, I'd just like to say thank you for that. And just know that I never expect that from anybody. You're more than welcome to learn with me. I have no expectations of you whatsoever. Whether I'm here or anywhere else, you're always welcome to learn with me. And my generosity is giving you the very best gift that I could ever give you, which is the understanding of these teachings. It's the very best gift that I could ever give any one of you, is to be able to understand this path, to be able to get to enlightenment. But at the end of a class like this, I do actually have a physical gift, a material gift that I usually offer to you guys. You guys see that I use these pictures of the Buddha. This is an artwork that was actually done of the Buddha based on his description in the original teachings, that all these statues and stuff you see where he's wearing fancy elaborate clothing and he's wearing this crown on his head, he actually didn't look like that during his lifetime. The people who made statues of him, they actually didn't live during his lifetime. So all the statues you see mostly don't actually represent what he looks like. This is actually a real representation of what he looked like during his life. And I think it's really important to humanize a Buddha so that you understand that he was a human being just like you and me. And just like he got to enlightenment, you can too. So that at the end of a class like this, I usually like to offer you a little poster of a picture of the Buddha. I have them up here, rolled up for you. And they just happen to kind of look like a diploma. So you might kind of think of it like that at the end of a class, that you're kind of getting a diploma and you can turn your tassel and all that kind of stuff. So if you hang this picture up in your dwelling or what have you, it can remind you to meditate. It can remind you of the teachings of the Buddha, but more importantly, it can remind you that he's a human being just like you and me. A Buddha has a personality just like you and me. You oftentimes see him very somber and very serious in meditation, That's how people depict him, but that's not what an enlightened being's doing all day long. They have fun. They enjoy life. They're out there having a blast, way more fun than they ever had in the unenlightened state. So while you have this picture available to you of him being in meditation that can remind you to meditate, can remind you to practice right speech and other things like that, just understand that an enlightened being has lots and lots and lots of fun. So maybe you're on your phone talking to your mom and you feel this anger coming up and you see the picture of the Buddha out of the corner of your eye and you're like, right speech, gentle, 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 right? So if you'd like one of these for yourself, you're more than welcome to come get one. If you'd like to take one and give it away to somebody, you can do that too, right? Because I don't have any expectation. When I practice generosity, it's just giving to you, and whatever you choose to do with it is up to you. Maybe there's a cleaner in your hotel that you'd like to give it to them, or someone at the front desk, or maybe there's a taxi driver that you've been using and you'd like to give it to them. So feel free to use it however you like. So they're up here. You're welcome to come get one as we finish up today. And then if you guys would like to do a group lunch together, we can kind of close up the classroom and then we can meet outside. There's a place that I would recommend that has vegan, vegetarian, and meat options as well. And they kind of have a nice little garden that we can kind of sit and eat. You can walk to this place or you can taxi over to it. It's inside the city. It's called Blue Diamond. If you would like to go there, they have actually recently changed their name. It's called Blue Diamond Breakfast Club, but they have more than just breakfast food. They have a lot of other stuff too. But we could eat somewhere else as well if you guys have another option. But that would be my recommendation, that maybe we'd like to go over there and sit back and relax and spend some time with each other. So if you'd like to come out to lunch, we'll maybe get together and go eat lunch somewhere. But if not, perhaps you're going home. Just have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for anything you've done to be able to support what I'm doing here, to be able to share these teachings with you. So take care and be well, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have...